Welcome back to the Yet to Be Named podcast. My son and I did a podcast years ago, and in the research for that, I remember reading, I think it was 99% of podcasts don't make it past episode 7. So if you get to episode 8, you're in the 1% of podcasters. So by the time we get to episode 8 in this podcast, hopefully I'll have a name by then. I went to ChatGPT and asked it, and it gave me the name Cornhole Cast. I plugged that in as more of a placeholder. So if you see Cornhole Cast come up on your YouTube feed, that's what this is. I just plugged it in just for a temporary name for it to separate the podcasts from the other MikesCornholeBags content. I have no intention of not continuing this. I mean, I plan on getting past episode 7. I love this. I love this content. I love this format. It gives me a way to touch on subjects, share my thoughts, give you some updates on what's going on in the cornhole world that don't fit into the reviews or the how-to videos or the videos I'm doing. So love this type of content. If you're enjoying it, let me know. We'll keep doing this. So in the meantime, we'll work on a name when I get a little further down here. Or maybe if I come up with something great. Some of you shared some ideas of names. I love them. If you've got an idea, share it with me. If one seems really catchy, I'll throw it up there. But let's go ahead and jump into this episode and give you a quick rundown of what I'm going to cover. We'll talk about the ACL schedules. They've released some of the schedules out there. The ACL has some new rule changes, or I guess they're still potential rule change. I don't think they're actually official yet. Touch on what those are. There is a new player ranking stat metric that the ACL has come out with. I want to touch on that, show you what I know about it, and we'll talk about that. A couple things from the Throwdown, the Spencer McKenzie Throwdown that happened weekend before last. A couple thoughts on that, some things I want to share. And then the last thing is probably the most controversial, the one that I'm going to get on my soapbox and rant about, and probably get the most upset about, frustrated about, because I got an email from one of you guys over the weekend, I think it was, or maybe it was into last week, maybe Friday or Saturday, and about the ACL stamped boards. I did some research and found some information that I don't like. So I saved that for the end. Some of you don't like it when I rant or get on my little soapbox. So if you get to that point, you don't like it, you turn it off. You're not missing any more content. So, but let's get into this. Let's start with the seasons, the schedules. The ACO just started their season 20 this past weekend. They had a major in Buffalo, New York, and one in Clearwater, Florida. So if you're missing cornhole content, you need your fix for cornhole content, go to the ACO YouTube page, and they stream their content there that you can go watch the recordings of the events this past weekend. Pretty much the ACO has an event from now until end of the year almost every weekend. They've got one lined up. They might miss a couple weekends here, maybe 3. I don't know. I looked through. There's pretty much all weekend, every weekend through, they have an event going on. The ACL also released their schedule. I'll pull this up here for you guys. They only released the first 6 events of their schedule, which is frustrating for one thing. In fact, I'll show you here. Let me jump over here to the American Cornhole League organization, and I'll show you their tournaments that they've got set up. Their majors. You look down here. Look at the number of tournaments that the ACO has already put out. You've got all these in September. You've got October on the schedule. You've got November filled up, December, January, February, March, April, all the way to May, the end of May. They have all of that already on the schedule for the ACO. Those are majors, so you can plan your travel, book your hotel rooms, know what's going on. But if you go to the ACL, backtrack here, right now they have 6 opens on the schedule, and that's it. 6, and that's just till January. So like I don't know why the ACL is so far behind or hasn't planned the year. Like, you feel like by now they would have the 2025 season planned out, and they're starting to work on the 2026. I don't know why they're a little slow getting information. Another thing to keep track of here on the ACL side is there's a new format. If you look here where it says format under open, that's shootout format. The first one's a shootout format. And if you look, they're actually the ACL Open number 4 in Hamilton, Ohio is also a shootout format, and the ACL Open number 6 in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina is also a shootout format. So 3 of the first 6 are a shootout format. Not a lot of information out there yet from the ACL about that, which is another thing that frustrates me, is they'll put this out and say, hey, there's a new format, but they don't tell you what it is. And if they've made a decision they're going with this new format, they probably know what that format is already. So why don't they have that out there why don't they have the information out? I don't know. I don't know why they're so reluctant to put out, here's what the shootout format looks like. From speculation and what they did in the past, shootout is round limited. From what I'm hearing, the shootout format for the Opens is going to be a 14-round limited games. If you watch my content, if you listen to my other podcast episodes, you know I hate round limited. It's just not fun to watch. It's not fun to play. It's not fair, I think, because think about the best cornhole games that you've seen. Go back to the Jay Rubin, Jordan Power winning the doubles national championship, coming down from, they were down 20-2, came back to win that. If that had ended at 14 rounds, Richards and Lopez wins the championship there. Right? Go back to Matt Guy and Alex Hicks in the Open a couple of years ago, I think it was. I think they played like 45 rounds or so. That was an incredible game. One of the best games I've watched. That would have been awful to shut that off at 14 rounds. Even this year, this past year, Jeremiah Ellis and Matt Guy played it, and Ellis came back and won that. If that was over at 14 rounds, I think Matt Guy probably wins that. So you think about the best games that you've seen, and for me, they're all over 14 rounds. They're longer games. If you went to round limited, you lose those games. Those games, the outcomes change. The quality of the play is different. I just don't like round limited, and I don't like the fact that now, from my understanding, the ACL is going to have less opens this year, and now half of them, maybe, I don't know, 3 of the first 6 are shootout formats, which means I don't like shootout formats. So that means now I'm limited even further on which opens I can go to. I already have to travel if I want to go to one because the ACL doesn't come to my area for whatever reason. At least they haven't in the past several years, which means I got to travel. Now, if the ones close to me are shootout formats, I've got to go further to find one that's more of a traditional classic format. So not really happy about that. Maybe I'm off base here. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I mean, maybe the ACL has pulled the players and you guys want a shootout format and that's why they did it. I don't know. I'm guessing most games last less than 14 rounds, which is why the shootout is at 14 rounds. So I'm assuming most games will play out to 21 in this format. But the problem is if for some reason you go to once over 14 rounds, what happens at round 14 and you're down, 12-10 and then it ends? Do you feel happy? You had a chance to come back, you're still in the game, and it ends because the round limited it cuts you off, and especially if you're new, your first time going to one, you show up, you lose your first one 12-10 and 14 rounds. Maybe you lose your second one, 8-6 and 14 rounds. Both those games you could have won and you didn't get to complete them, and yet you're 0-2 and you're done, you're out of the tournament. I just don't know if that's a great way to bring new people into it. I don't know. I don't like the shootout format. I don't like round limited. I've mentioned before, I wish the ACL would go with the skins format. If you're going to go round limited, change the way it played. Don't play the traditional scoring system, but then cut the rounds off. Change it. Go to round limited to where you're playing the first one to 7, win 7 rounds, wins it. Because in the skins format, you're never out of it. You can be down 6-0, but then you can win the next 7 rounds and you win that game. So you always have a chance to come back. There is a score completion, not a round that cuts you off. So I wish the ACL would change that. I don't like the fact they're going all in around limited. It's not my favorite thing. I've ran on that long enough, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you like the round limited, if you like the shootout format, what do you think of this? Are you in favor of it? Are you not? Am I off base here? Am I on my own when I say I don't like it? I'm not happy about this. Maybe 95% of you, 99% of you like the round limited. I don't know. Just curious to hear your thoughts. Let's jump into the next thing I want to talk about is rule changes. And these are not officially official yet. From my understanding, the ACL is proposing these. They could still tweak them. They could still change. They haven't actually made the official announcement. I don't know if the ACL still has to sign off on these, vote on them, or whatever, or if they're just kind of waiting to release these out, but I don't think there's any big surprises. The main one is the very first rule change here, and that's the follow-through step has been eliminated and a hard foul line established when pitching a bag. Just means you're not stepping over now. Now, I don't know. They say a hard foul line. It makes me think you just can't cross that line at all. The TCL has a hard foul line you can't cross. The ACO doesn't. The ACO, you can actually cross the line when you throw. You just can't touch the ground on the other side until your bag hits the board. So you're allowed, the ACO has a little bit of a blurry foul line there, but they don't let you actually come all the way across the street. And I know that for a fact because a couple years ago, I was at ACL Regional and I got called out 3 times at Regional for stepping over and touching the line, the ground on the other side, because on my last, if I had the last bag in the round, I'm throwing second, I get the last bag, I throw it. As soon as I throw it, I know that bag's in. I start to walk down the other end. I walk that bag in. I did it 3 times, twice in one game, got called out on. I was a little frustrated because the guy that called me out twice in one game, I think he saw that it frustrated me the first time, so he called me out again. Well within his rights. He was in the rules. I was breaking the rules when I was doing that, so he was well within his right to call him out, and he was playing the mental side. He saw that it was bothering me, and he saw me do it again. He called it out. I ended up losing that game. Would I have won if he hadn't called it out? I don't know, but it really did get to me. And then I got called out later on in that tournament again because I finally fixed that, and I've done better at that. But I do see that being a problem in the ACL. I don't think the players are going to have an issue adjusting to the step over, getting away from stepping across the line. I think the players will make the adjustment pretty easily. They've got time because the ACL season doesn't start till October, so they got another whole month to go. And I think they've been aware of this. The pro players have been aware of this for a while. So if you're a step over player, you've got time to fix that so you're not stepping over. The problem I see coming up is for that last bag. When can you cross that line to start walking down to the other end? Is it after your bag hits the board, like the ACO? Is it after that bag comes to a stop? Is it 3 seconds after the bag stops and comes to a rest? What is that, and how hard are they going to enforce that? Because that's where I think we're going to see players getting called out is on that last bag walking across that line. So we'll see how that is. I'm not sure. I did notice in that rule change, I'll pull that back up here, that the third one down, it says on the final bag of a round, there's an added penalty for an opponent leaving the box early prior to the bag being thrown, which means if your opponent throws their fourth bag, you still have one, and they start to go forgetting you have one, there's going to be a penalty added for that. I can see that that's happened before. I think I've done that before. You think you have last bag, you throw it, it's over, you start running, go, oh, I'm sorry. I don't know. I'm curious to see what the penalty is going to be for that and how well they enforce that. Because sometimes to me that's more of a mistake. Now, if you do it continuously in a game trying to get in your opponent's head, then maybe that's where an issue. But if you just absentmindedly start walking down, I don't want it to be too harsh of a penalty. So we'll see how that goes. I'm curious to see how these new rule changes play out on this. Next thing I want to talk about, actually, before I get into the next thing, I want to do a quick little shameless plug here, and that you can see if you're watching the video format of this, you can see that I have a new Patreon listed here, patreon.com/MikesBags. I've always had Ko-fi. I've always promoted my Ko-fi.com/MikesBags where you can go and support me. I still like Ko-fi better, and I've talked about it before. Patreon charges more fees. So if you know, it's $5 a month on Patreon, $5 a month on Ko-fi, whichever platform works. And the reason I added Patreon was because a lot of you have mentioned me saying you support other creators on Patreon, you have a Patreon account, you don't want to open a Ko-fi account, you'd like to support me there. So I set that up for those of you who want to do that. I made it the same tier, $5 per. But the thing is, this Patreon does take more fees out, so less money comes to me to go back in the channel than if you go Ko-fi. So if you don't have a choice and you don't have one signed up, I would encourage you and push you towards the Ko-fi side of it, because that's going to benefit me more. But if you already have Patreon, I'm fine. If you want to do that, jump on that. I do the bag giveaways and the apparel giveaways every month. So anyone who supports me on Ko-fi, you get in the giveaway every month. I give away a set of bags and I give away some apparel. If you support me on Patreon, I'll put you in those giveaways as well. So either way, you get in the giveaways. The only thing on the Patreon side you're not going to have access to is my shop. I have a shop on Ko-fi where you can buy, I sell some of my used bags. That's where I review and put them up for sale so that I can go back and purchase more bags. My members, my Ko-fi supporters and members have first access to those bags. So I put them up there for about a week for members only. And then if they don't sell then I open them up to everybody. On the Patreon side, I can't give you access because Ko-fi and Patreon are different platforms. So if you're paying the $5 a month on Patreon, you'll get in the giveaways. You're not going to have early access to the shop. That's the one downside you get on that. But I want to make this as available to as many of you as I can. So Patreon, Ko-fi, whichever one you want to do, patreon.com/MikesBags, Ko-fi.com/MikesBags. Support me either one. I greatly appreciate it. It really does help me do what I'm doing with this channel. But I'll also say that even if you don't want to support me financially, I have no issue with that. Watch my content. You watching my content is the best way to support me. The views are the most important thing. That helps YouTube see that people like the content and they'll start recommending it more and help get more views out there. The channel grows and that's going to support me better than anything else out there. Also, if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button. I think like 80%, 75, 80% of you guys that watch my content haven't subscribed. It doesn't cost you anything. It really doesn't. It doesn't make a difference, except that it does help me on the YouTube side and the YouTube algorithm side of it. It does help me there if you click that subscribe button. You're still gonna get recommended same content. Like I said, it's not gonna change anything else. So if you think about it, if you get a chance, click that subscribe button for me. It'll make a world difference to me and the growth of this channel. So I thank you guys. I appreciate letting me take the time to promote myself there. So I want to jump in now and talk about the new metric. I'm gonna pull up here. The ACL is coming out with a metric called the Cornhole Performance Index. It's kind of their version of Scoreholio's SPR, except I think it's going to be calculated differently. There's not a lot. I shouldn't say that. Actually, the ACL puts some information. If you go to iplaycornhole.com/CPI, you can access the information about what the new Cornhole Performance Index is. A couple things that I noticed here that I wanted to point out. One, it's going to be a scale of 1 to 12. So Scoreholio, the SPR is up to 100. This is up to 12. 1 to 12 is how they're going to rank players. they're going to rank you based on your average PPR, your points per round, as well as your average DPR, which is your difference in points per round, how many points you score or give up average on each round. So that's your DPR. I like the fact they're including DPR in that. I don't know if Scoreholio factors that in, but I've always said DPR is a better metric to rank yourself than PPRs, because DPR tells you if you win or lose, PPR doesn't. The other thing it's going to throw in is a strength of schedule, kind of a weighted strength of schedule out there. And I think that's kind of what you get with SPR, right? The better the opponent you beat, the more you're going to gain. The lesser the opponent you lose to, the more you're going to give up, so to speak, on that. It's also going to weigh things based on the level you're playing. So local levels are going to weigh less than regionals, which are less than state or conference, which is less than open. And then the pro events will weigh the most. So if you're a pro player, you'll get the most value winning pro events or pro games at pro events. That I'm not so sure about, because to me, like SPR, I've talked about this before, the SPR is the most accurate at the local level, because those are the players you play all the time, you play consistently, and it does a really good job. If you look at SPR, and if you play in a local league and you look at the SPR and where players are ranked, for the most part, they're going to be pretty well where they should be based on SPR. It's when you get outside of your area and you go travel to a different state, a different league, a different area to play in, then that's where your SPR may be different, because a 55 SPR where I play at may be different than, maybe equal to a 65 SPR in Oregon, or maybe more like a 50 SPR in Florida, or wherever. Like the number is kind of arbitrary. And like I said, when you don't play against the same people, it's hard to compare. And I think you're going to get that here. I don't know if I like the fact they're weighing those bigger events more than the local events. I almost feel like it should be the other way around. The other thing it's going to be is it's going to weigh based on the division you're in. So the novice division is going to weigh the least, all the way up till you get to the open, the advanced or open level is going to weigh the most. So if you win games at the open division, it's going to weigh more than if you win a game in novice, intermediate, or competitive, or even advanced. Here, let me scroll down a little further here. What it's going to take into effect is, where is it? Right here. It's going to factor in the last 50 games, or you have to play at least 50 games since October of 2021, which is an arbitrary number, and then you have to play at least 150 rounds since October of 2022. Now, the October 2022 is key, because this is going to factor in your last 2 seasons as well as the current season. So right now, we're just starting the new season, which means last year, the 2024 season, and the 2023 season are going to be incorporated into the CPI rating, along with the data, the stats you get from playing the 2025 season. So by the end of 2025, you'll have 3 seasons of data in there. Once 26 starts, the 2023 season drops off. You'll have 24, 25 season, and then you'll start the new season. It's kind of how I interpret this. So October 2022 was the start of the 2023 season. So you have to play at least 150 rounds in the last 2 seasons to get a stat, to get numbers, as well as 50 total games played since October 2021. So if you don't have a CPI, it may be because you haven't met one of those 2 criteria. The other thing is you also have to have a gold, platinum, or diamond membership. So you have to have one of the upper tier memberships to have a CPI. I don't have a problem with that. Scoreholio gives you an SPR even at the free tier, but to see your stats, you have to pay to get one of the higher levels, the higher memberships, to get your stats. And I'm okay with that, because for the ACL, they have to put some time and effort in on the back end to build this, to put the programming in, to take care of all this, to collect the data and crunch the numbers. So they're putting money and effort into this, and they're going to have people there to upgrade it and to help it, to work the kinks out of it. So I don't have a problem with them saying you have to have a certain level of membership to get that. Honestly, if you're playing a lot of open events, you're probably going to have the gold membership anyway, so it's probably not an issue to you. If you're not playing a lot of open events, you probably don't care about your CPI. So I don't think it's going to be an issue. If you have a CPI, I'd love to know if you think if you've compared it to people that you play against, your league mates, whatever. I'd love to know if you think it's really accurate or not, or are you not really happy with your rating? I'd love to get your thoughts on it. I don't play enough ACL, so I don't have a CPI yet. Maybe I'll play some this year. We'll see. The ACL is not my area. Tough for me to play, but curious to see how it goes. And then I think that's everything on that. So I'd love to get your thoughts on that. Are you happy with this? I do like the fact that the ACL is not just going PPR to rank players. They actually have a metric. Now, will CPI be better than the PPR ranking? From what I see, I think it will be. If you've got CPI, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And then let me jump on to the next thing, which is the Throwdown. the Spencer McKenzie's Throwdown that happened the weekend before last. A couple things I want to talk about. One, the ACL didn't stream any of the content, which I was surprised. I went on there. I love watching the Throwdown because it's outdoors, and I play outdoors almost 99% of the time. I'm playing outdoors. I love outdoor play because there's a lot of variables: the weather, the wind. There's things that you have to adapt to where you don't adapt to indoors. Even board conditions change a lot more outdoors than they do indoors. So I love outdoor events, especially at pros, because pros go outdoors. It's nice to see them throw a front board. It's nice to see them throw a bag off the back. It's nice to see them struggle a little bit in the conditions affecting them, and watching them and seeing who can adjust and who doesn't. I love that. Couldn't find the content in the ACL. I was a little upset. They did stream or broadcast the finals on Sunday night, but the whole Saturday, Sunday event, there was no ACL content out there. You had to go to the Facebook page for Ultra Cornhole or Titan Bags. The only two I could find that were streaming. Some of the players were doing streaming their own games, but it's tough when players are streaming games because sometimes it's hard to keep track because they don't always have the score up there to know what the score is, what's going on. Especially if you come in mid-game, it's tough to really keep track of what's going on. So I like it when there's actually a broadcast court. This is probably a personal issue, but with Facebook, when I'm going to a Facebook page like Ultras or Titans, for me I like to watch the content on my TV. I don't have a Facebook app on my TV, so I have to pull it up on my phone or my tablet and then cast it and stream it to my TV, which is a little more of a pain. I have a YouTube app. I can go pull up my TV and watch YouTube videos. That's why I typically go to YouTube when I watch the ACL or ACO streams. So that was why I was a little frustrated. It was harder for me to pull that content up and watch this. Extra steps, a little more difficult. I wish the ACL had, because Spencer McKenzie technically is an ACL event now, so I don't know why they weren't streaming. Again, not a big deal. I just didn't like that. The other thing was in the finals. If you haven't watched this or you don't know, I don't want to spoil this for you, but Jamie, I am going to spoil it for you. So if you don't want to know who won, maybe don't listen to this. But Jamie Graham, Eric Davis won the tournament, the throwdown there. They were throwing AAR rippers, which I noticed that in the broadcast they were doing. Now, I think the announcers mentioned that they were throwing the rippers, which caught my eye because Jamie Graham is sponsored by All Cornhole. Eric Davis is sponsored by Lucky Bags. Players will have a contract with one company for singles and sometimes a different company for doubles. So sometimes you'll see players throw one bag for singles and a different bag when they play doubles. In this case, Jamie's bag of choice for both singles and doubles is All Cornhole. And Eric's is lucky. He has the same bag contract with singles as he does in doubles. Now, when they partner together, they have obviously different bag companies. I figured they would either throw the All Cornhole Phoenix or the Lucky Pro Sniper Elites is typically the bag of choice of this. And they weren't. They were throwing AAR rippers. The reason I found out later, I can't remember if they mentioned on the broadcast or if I saw it, but the reason they were throwing the rippers was because AAR Cornhole was offering an incentive or a bonus. If you won with their bags, they would pay you $4,000 to your team, $2,000 each. And I think if you got second or third as well. So that's why they were throwing AARs, because of the extra money, the bonus money. And I get it. $2,000 is a pretty good chunk of change. Jamie's a full-time cornhole pro. Eric might be as well. So $2,000 is a big deal to them. I see why they did it on the player side. And I could be wrong. Maybe both those players, their contracts are up and neither one of them has a bag sponsor, which means they're kind of free agents, which then this becomes a whole different view, or a whole different argument is, but in my mind, they were wearing their pro jerseys. They had their sponsors, All Cornhole and Lucky Bags, on their jersey. So from what I could tell, they're still under contract, which means it was a bad look to me to see them throwing AAR bags instead of throwing one of their sponsored companies' bags. And maybe they went to All Cornhole, maybe they went to Lucky and said, "Hey, AAR is offering this bonus. Is it okay?" And their back company said, "Yeah, it's no problem." I'm just surprised that one of their companies didn't tell them, "Hey, we'll match that $4,000. If you win with our bag, we'll match it," because it's a big tournament. A lot of people are watching it, and I've even seen AAR Cornhole put some social media posts up there. "Hey, look, Eric Davis, Jamie Graham won with our bags," kind of thing. Like they're marketing this, and rightfully they should. That's why they put that bonus up there, because they feel like they can recoup that money. If by getting a win in the biggest cornhole tournament in the world, they can recoup that by saying, "Hey, our bag won that tournament." I don't know. It was just a bad look for me. For me, watching as an outsider, seeing that these guys were sponsored by certain companies and they chose to throw a different company's bag, just didn't look that good. And I don't blame them. I understand the money side of it, but from the sponsorship side, if this company is paying you and they're sponsoring you, I feel like there should be some loyalty there to them. And again, maybe they went to their companies and their company said, "Hey, we don't care. That's fine. Go do it." They didn't want to match the money. So, okay, do it. Maybe they're not under contract, and maybe we're going to see Graham or Davis end up as an AAR sponsored player for the 2025 season. I don't know. I don't know if that happens, or I find out their contracts are up, then this is a mute point. But still, the outsider looking in, the perception you see of that is they're throwing a different bag, and it just looked weird, and it didn't look good for all cornhole lucky bags that their players chose to throw a different bag in this tournament. It made me feel like they thought the Ripper was a better bag than what the other companies had. Didn't like that. I don't know if you saw that, if you paid attention to that, if that bothered you. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. If it didn't, and I'm way off base again, I'd love to hear that as well. So, but that's my thoughts there. And the last thing I want to touch on is the ACL board stamp. I mentioned this before previously, but something has come to light, and this is where I'm gonna start my rant. So if you don't want to hear me rant, you can done. This is all I got to talk about is this, and then I'm done with this episode. But I got an email from one of you guys, and I'm not gonna call you out. I got an email from one of you guys. I think it was Friday or Saturday, that you had purchased a set of ACL comp stamp boards from All Cornhole, and you realized the boards were not 3/4 inch; they were 5/8 thick tops on the boards. I didn't know that. I was thinking, because the whole pitch that the ACL gave about these stamp boards that I heard was they want to bring the quality of equipment up to a certain level. That sometimes these leagues these leagues are playing on lesser quality boards. They want to have a consistent level of play across the board. So no matter what league you go to, wherever you are in the country, it's a consistent level. My assumption was that meant all boards were going to be 3/4 inch thick. So I think we've all realized that a 3/4 inch thick top is the minimum. Anything less than that, and you got bounce on the board, it doesn't play the same. So I did a little research. I'll pull it up here. I did a little research on All Cornhole's page, and I brought, for those of you watching the video, you can see here. And I went and looked. I'll pull it up for you guys. I went to the comp stamp boards because I want to double check this, and I like to just make sure that I've got the right information. And I clicked on their comp stamp boards, and if you look down here, it says right here, 5/8 inch cabinet grade birch plywood. Doesn't even say Baltic birch. So not only are they using a thinner top board, they're using a little bit lower grade than what I think to me the standard is a 3/4 inch Baltic birch. That's like the bare minimum that I want to see on a cornhole board if I'm going to play on. I just feel like, especially if you're going, the ACL is supposed to be the big league. That's the league that we look at and say, okay, they're the big boys. They're the ones that are leading the cornhole sport of cornhole, and they're taking control. They should have the best equipment. And you're telling me now that it's okay to go to a league and play on a 5/8 inch, I don't know, cabinet grade birch ply. I don't know if that could be Baltic birch, could be something else. Who knows what that is? So technically, we're not are we bringing the standard up at these local levels. We're bringing the standard down. We're lowering the standard down. And the problem I have with it too is the price. $324 for a 5/8 inch top on that board. And the other thing you'll see down here is it says it has a cross beam to prevent bounce. One cross beam, for I can tell. I don't see it. They don't show a picture of the back of the board, which tells me if they had multiple cross beams, they would show that, right? It says one cross beam on the bottom. So $324 for a pretty mediocre board. And these are ACL approved comp stamp. These are boards you can play at ACL local events and regionals. And if you're a local or regional director, this is the cheapest board you're going to buy. So then I went and looked. I said, you know what? Let me go look at some other companies, because as far as I know right now, there are 4 companies out there that do sponsored boards. Another one is BG. So I went down and pulled up a BG comp stamp board, and let's click on one here. And these are what was it? Was it $324? That sounds like about the same price, right? But anyway, $324 for a comp stamp board. Again, 5/8 inch cabinet grade birch plywood. So 5/8 inch on the top, not listed as Baltic birch. Not happy about that. It also says cross beam, one cross beam, not multiple on this. So the comp stamp boards are your pretty, less than what I would call the base level of boards out there. And they're charging, a good chunk of change. Like these should be $200 boards. In my mind, if you're going with that cheap of a top, they shouldn't be more than $200, because you can get better quality boards for less than that out there that are not ACL stamped, right? The other thing, I probably should show it up here as well. I didn't show it I'll go back to the All Cornhole page. So then I went looking as well. I said All Cornhole has elite boards. So I went to the elite boards. Now the elite boards do have the 3/4 inch, but it's still called cabinet grade birch. So it's not necessarily Baltic birch. they still only have a single cross beam. So this is the elite level, which is you got comp, elite, and pro stamps on the boards, which is what I think is going on here. So the elite level has the 3/4 inch. You have to at least go elite level, which is $400, $399, just to get back to what I thought was the standard of boards, the baseline of boards. When you're playing competitive cornhole, to me, this right here is the minimum you want to see on a board, and it's $400, which is absurd. Like $400 should be better than your standard on that, right? I don't think BG has a pro stamp. It looks like they only have elite and comp. We'll go back real quick here before I want to venture a little further here. I'll go back to All Cornhole because I want to show you they do also have elite boards and pro boards. Their elite boards, we'll pull up just a basic one here. Elite boards, they do have the 3/4 inch cabinet grade plywood, again, not specifying Baltic birch, and it still just says one cross beam to prevent bounce. So still a single cross beam on this for $400. Now, All Cornhole does have a pro board. So now you go to the pro boards, and I'll just click on one here as well. The pro boards are $450 for this. Now, these pro boards do have, where do I see it right here, 3/4 inch cabinet grade Baltic birch. So now we're getting to the Baltic birch, which to me, that 3/4 inch grade Baltic birch is the bare minimum I want to see on a competitive board. So you've got to pay $450 just to get to what I thought was the baseline of quality of boards. And this does have, I saw it here, yeah, the anti-bounce dual cross beam construction. So now we do have two, but it just has two cross braces on it. That's it. So $450, you're getting 3/4 inch Baltic birch with 2 cross beams, and that's it for an ACL Elite or ACL Pro, which is the top quality of boards, right? Now I want to go to West Georgia Cornhole because they're another one of the board suppliers here. And when I was here earlier, it was really confusing. I don't like the way their website's laid. It's just tough to figure out. It took me a while to figure out where I need to go to find what I was looking for. So West Georgia has comp stamp boards as well. I'll pull one up here. Their comp stamps are $350, which is a little pricier than BG's or All Cornhole. But their comp stamp boards, if you scroll down, they do use 3/4 inch Baltic birch on their comp stamp boards. They have I think they showed a picture of the back. They do have the dual cross beams on their board. So this is a comp stamp. So this is what to me is the baseline of a comp stamp, right? So right now we've got a better board than what you find at BG or All Cornhole for comp stamps. The problem I have here is now you have different levels of comp stamps. And I've been one for a while now. I've been on my little soapbox, on my tabletop, on the mountain, screaming and shouting that there isn't a difference in quality between the comp stamp bags and pro stamp bags. It's the same quality. There's no difference in quality. And then the ACL puts the boards out, and there is a difference in quality. So if you've been listening to me and you go, oh, the comp and pro stamps are the same on bags, they're probably the same on boards, I don't need to worry about that. And you're going to end up buying a comp stamp board from All Cornhole or BG, and you get a lesser quality board. You're not going to be happy about that. So I wish they would be a little more upfront with this and say, hey, what's the standard? Because the other thing is, not all comp stamps are the same. I don't understand. What's the point of putting a stamp on a board and having different tiers, comp, elite, and pro, if the specifications are different, right? This comp stamp from West Georgia is a different board than what you're getting from All Cornhole or BG, where I would think all comp stamp boards are under the same specifications. You see what I'm saying? I hope I'm making sense here. And they're not. So that was a little frustrating to me. Now you're paying a little more for this board, $350 for the comp stamp. The West Georgia, they didn't have I don't know if did they have an elite? I don't remember if they had an elite or not. Again, it's confusing. You start scrolling through a lot of different boards here. I don't know if they had an elite. They had the comp. If you go to the X Factor boards, that's when you start getting to, okay, X Factor is the elite, I guess. So the X Factor boards are the elite boards for West Georgia. I don't think they had, maybe they didn't have a pro stamp is what I was looking for here. All I see is elite. So we're going to go in here and pull up this X Factor board. And you'll see here, the X Factor 1, it has that cross. That's the X brace on it, the cross brace there, which is fine. Like, that's a good bracing. I've played on the X Factor bracing. It's a good bracing. I don't have an issue with that. It's just as good as the dual cross beams. Maybe even a little better than just having the 2 cross beams, because you do have some vertical support there as well. And these X Factors are 3/4 inch. The problem I have with them is they're marine grade plywood. They're not said they're Baltic birch, and I've seen some issues with X Factor boards. And I'm speaking from my experience. I am not trying to make a statement, but I've seen some issues with the top board on these X Factors having some chipping issues. I don't know if it's across the board. I've just seen that more than I have other boards. That's why I feel like that marine gray plywood is probably a lesser quality than that Baltic birch. It's probably cheaper, which is why they're doing it, trying to keep costs down. So it's probably a little cheaper. But again, I feel like we've been through this enough that if I go to an event, I want a 3/4 inch top a 3/4 inch Baltic birch top. That's the minimum I want to see. If I go to an event and they have X Factor boards, I'm probably okay with it. If I go to an event and it's got the all cornhole, if I go to a local or regional event, ACL event, and they've got the BG or all cornhole comp stamp boards with a 5/8 inch top, I'm not coming back. I'll play that event. I won't come back. Like that is not the level of quality I expect from the ACL and not what I thought was going on here. But again, X Factor boards are $425 for a set to the Elite. So you're paying up for that. Now let me show you something, guys. If you're not an ACL director for a local regional, you don't need to be buying stamp boards. Can I show you something here? And I'm gonna, it may be a little bit of a shameless plug. Go to Cornhole Solutions. Right? I promote them. They're the only boards I use. I love them. I'm going to show you their tournament board here. Just their basic tournament board. We'll pull up, I love this bowling design, but we'll just pull up their regular design, right? This is their basic board. One thing they've got the dual cross braces right there. So that's better than the comp stamp board from BG or All Cornhole, right? They've got the dual braces on there. And their boards are $299. I think they were $325 from All Cornhole and BG. You're already $25 cheaper. And what you get on this, if I can find here, 3/4 inch Baltic birch top on these. So for $25 less, you're getting a better top, better quality top, and you're getting better cross bracing for Cornhole Solutions without it. And if you add this to your cart, let me show you this. We won't bundle, just the base minimum here. If you add this to your cart and you use my code, Mike10, you get them for $285 plus shipping. So you're actually saving now $40 cheaper than All Cornhole or BG on theirs. And then if you want to go, take this out of my cart here. If you want to go for a better board, go to the Pro Solution Light boards, which this is an even better board here than. This is a better board to me than what's on the pro level ACL Pro Stand boards, because not only do you have the two cross braces, which seems to be standard for the Elite, actually the Pro. All Cornhole and BG, I think their Elite boards just had one brace on it. So these have the dual braces on there, and it has two vertical braces as well. So you've got extra bracing on this. You have the 3/4 inch Baltic birch top. Where is that? Right down here. 3/4 inch Baltic birch top on this. And you're getting this for $389. It was $450, I think, for the Pro Stamps, $425 for the X Factor boards, right? And then again, if you want to throw it into your cart, throw in my Mike10 code, you get it for $370, right? $80 cheaper than BG or All Cornhole on their Elite boards. You're getting a better quality board for $80 cheaper. So think about it. If you're not a director and you don't need the stamp, don't spend the money on stamp. I don't know what the ACL is doing. I don't know why they've got why they're dropping the quality of board, the quality of playing boards at the local regional level. So if you're an ACL director, local regional, you really need to go at least to the Elite level. Honestly, you need that pro board because you're only having one single brace. I feel like two braces is kind of the standard out there now. One single brace is not that great of a quality. So you almost got to go to the pro level board to get what you're looking for. The other problem I have is the consistency. There's lack of consistency there between. So when I go to a local event, which boards we're playing on? Are we playing on comp, Elite, pro? There's so many different variables there. I don't understand that. I don't know why we're dropping the standard down. We're lowering the standard of cornhole boards, and it frustrates me so much. Repeating myself here too much. I'm getting frustrated. It just drives me crazy that the ACL is doing that and allowing that to happen. So I'm going to get off my soapbox, get off my mountain, come back down, and just maybe I'm wrong here. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. I mean, one, were you aware of this at all? Like this, there was no information put out on this because they're already putting out these stamp boards, because that way the local directors can start buying their boards, start replacing the supply they have. So come the 2026 season, they won't have to dump a large sum of money. They can start replacing boards slowly as they go along throughout the year, which is great. It allows them to make that transition slowly. But do these directors know that the comp stamp, that they may be buying lower quality boards by going with all Cornhole BG than if they went with Flux or West Georgia, that there's a difference there? Do they know that the comp stamp isn't the same across the board? I don't know. Maybe they told them that. Maybe they're aware of that. I was not aware of that. I'm not a director. I have no need to be aware of that. This was brought to my attention, and it bothered me enough that I wanted to bring this up, and that's why I've been ranting for this however long on this. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you agree with me? Am I going too far? Am I just making a bigger deal out of, am I making a mountain out of a molehill here? Or is there validity into what I'm saying? Do you agree or do you not? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, especially for local directors, local regional directors. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. If you were aware of this, and do you feel like this is the quality of equipment that you want to have at your events, knowing that now if you do want to bring your standard up, you've got to pay for that ACL Pro stamp board, which is $425 as opposed to $320. So you're paying an extra $100 for every set of boards you have just to get back to the standard that you had before the stamps came out. So love to hear your thoughts on that. I ran it too long. I'm gonna shut it down here. I thank you guys for spending the time and especially if you watched all the way through. I really do appreciate that. Love to hear your thoughts on what I've covered here, whether you agree or not. Always love to hear guys' opinions. Drop a comment down below. If you really do have an opinion on this, a strong opinion that maybe it's too much to put in a comment, shoot me an email, MikesCornholeBags@gmail.com. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, or shoot me a message through social media. Always love to hear guys' opinions, even if you don't agree with me. Maybe I'm missing, maybe there's something here I'm missing. I'd love to know if there's something here that I don't know. Maybe the ACL has put out information to the directors that they haven't made public knowledge, which is possible, and that's fine. That's information I don't have, and if I'm wrong and there's something there that I don't know about, I'd love to know that, and I can come back on the next episode and apologize and correct the information. So anyway, I thank you guys for spending the time here. I really do appreciate it. I thank you all for your support, and thank you so much for watching.